If I have to say this once, I'll say it again. In-school suspension is better than out-of-school suspension. Good evening and welcome to Give Me a Break. I'm Jonathan Carmody. Throughout the 8 years, we focused in on in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension. We told you the difference between those two. In-school suspension means you're sitting in a room with rules like no talking, no sleeping. You gotta do your work. Your teacher left you an assignment. You gotta do that. If not, you just sit there on the desk quietly. Out-of-school suspension is you're suspended from school, but then it's like you get a day off from school, but your parents find out. So once the parents find out, you gotta do some chores. That's not fun. Unless your parents don't find out. I mean, if your parents get pissed that you got suspended, you'll probably be grounded and make you do a lot of chores. Well, now North Texas educators are talking pros and cons of a new bill that would allow young children to be suspended from school. When Governor Greg Abbott was in the House, he got rid of in-school suspension. This is what is in the text. This is House Bill 6, relating to discipline in public schools. Section the education goes amended by amended subsections. Each charter is granted under this subsection must describe the educational program offered. All this is House Bill 6. Under House Bill 6, students can be suspended if there is an offensive-related weapons, if students threaten to immediate health and safety of others, or they repeatedly significantly disrupt the classroom as determined by the campus administrator. If passed, the bill would allow in-school suspensions up to 10 days and out-of-school suspension up to 3 days. Are those students too young to be suspended? Lacey Beasley spoke with the Superintendent Director of Counseling for Services, Dr. Chad Gee. He says this is where House Bill 6 comes into play. And this is where our district innovation comes into play. We are expecting students with every severe behaviors that we're compromising the classroom environment. I watched a 5-year tale of a kindergarten classroom. And when I say tear it up, I mean destroy it. It's real. And how are those teachers supposed to educate all the kids in their classrooms with that going on? We don't necessarily have the resources to deal with a lot of those behaviors, so I see the purpose with House Bill 6. And this is what Devin how are they supposed to learn when they're dealing with all these other things in life? Could it be food insecurity? We see kids who witness things that they shouldn't be witnessing. If all mine's not okay, then there's no way school life can be okay. That's from Beasley. That's from Lacey Beasley. Devlin. It's never first going at any grade level, especially in the grade. Multiple interventions and conversations are done prior to reaching the point of putting a student outside of school. He also said, I remember sitting in a training hearing, if they're mad or sad and they can't add, which is the simplicity of that is so true, even if for adults. We can't control that in their homes. We can't control that here. It's like, what happened to conversation? I mean, 10 days in school suspension, I'm up for that, but 3 days out of school suspension, I'm not all for it. You got to get the child. Have we gone back to zero tolerance not making sense? Have we gone to that point? Well, the answer is yes. We're going back to zero tolerance. All parents care about these days. All of us parents and community members now want nowadays is zero tolerance and drug policies. Why can't Johnny read? Why can't Johnny read? It never gets old. And according to every school board zero tolerance policy, anything that can be used as a weapon is a weapon. So if it's a wrench, it's a weapon. It may be asinine to you and me, but it's what the school puts in their policies. A lot of people may be wearing it on House Bill 6. But if it passes, we could be seeing in-school suspension up to 10 days, while out-of-school suspension could be going down to 3 days. Now, for the case of the 14-year-old who who was almost arrested and sent to jury for assault. He got a 3-day suspension for inappropriate use of language and inappropriate physical contact. The principal cut it down 3 days. He was back Thursday. There are kids that have gotten suspended from school. And if we were to do another second look Saturday, if we would do a second look Monday, it would be into kids getting suspended from school. And even the worst things, teachers get suspended for hitting a child. It's the teachers that get suspended. And now some states re-examine school discipline as Trump order pays to go ahead. This was all in April. I mean, North Texas is just the only one. Most states are doing it nowadays. But black students are punished more often more than white students. Isn't that just racist? Look into that later. Still ahead, a cop, someone who witnessed a murder, speaks out to Rob Stafford. Later on, an airport under investigation by David Bloom. Please stay with us. It's like I said, if I had to do a GMB second look into kids getting suspended from school, we'll probably do it tonight. We're going to, because everyone needs a quick week because of House Bill 6. If you don't remember, House Bill 6 could increase in-school suspension from 10 days, while out-of-school suspension will be lowered to 3 days. Now, we had to look through the principal office clips about kids getting suspended. It's all over the news. Every story that you see on TV, it involves student gets suspended from school. Every story you see on the news. Like this one from 8 years ago. This student was suspended for a social media post that he says, this student was suspended for a social media post. The father says the school went too far. That was back in 2016. October 2016. The father's accused of legal action because pursuing legal action says he pursuing legal action because the school system went too far. Take a look at this.
What I said is not what I meant to make people think about me, and it was taken the wrong way.
It only took a few words for 8th grader Logan Johnson to realize the power of social media.
I replied to her story as do it, because her story was, should I drink bleach, so I just said do it.
He says over a weekend this month, a dark humor reply to another Monroe Junior High student's Instagram post got him suspended Friday for 10 days. His parents were shocked.
I'm thinking something serious, something major. He has pulled a gun. He has done bad things.
In the thread, after Johnson posted "do it," the student who made the original post said, "You want me to KMS, meaning kill myself, and thanks." He says those letters didn't click at first, so he replied, "You're welcome."
I would never want someone to kill themselves. Never.
Johnson says last week he was pulled out of class by a police officer, escorted to the principal's office, and questioned, his phone taken and searched.
Where do they get the power to reach into your life after school hours, off school property, not even talking about school issues, for something, a question that was asked and answered with 2 words?
The superintendent for Monroe Local Schools tells us if social media becomes a disruption, they can't ignore it, even if it's not on school property. He also tells us their code of conduct outlines cyberbullying. Johnson says he's humiliated.
It started off as something that I thought was a joke, and I didn't mean to hurt anybody, and now it's coming around and it's really affecting my everything.
All right, now Johnson says as part of his suspension, he'll have to be in an isolated classroom for the next 6 days. He'll also have to eat lunch alone in the lunchroom in front of everybody else. His father says at this point he plans to consult an attorney. We're live in Monroe tonight. Dan Griffin, WLWT News 5.
the Fourth Amendment. Look, if schools have reasonable suspicion that something's going on, the school has the right to search it. And even their story times. Just like this one. Students are getting suspended from school because all they're doing is just, look up student gets suspended from school. Every single story pops up. Every story pops up like this one right here. We first showed you this many years ago. We first showed you this story of a student who got suspended for taking a picture of in a bathroom, which led to lots of other students protesting. Take a look.
Hazel Juco says when she saw discolored water coming from the sink at school, it upset her.
I just took a picture of it, and then fourth hour is my newspaper class, and I went and talked about it with them.
She posted the picture on Facebook and Twitter. Why?
I always hope that something good will happen. We'll somehow have someone who wants to help us with money, because our school obviously doesn't have money.
A short time later, she got called down to the office at John Glenn High in the Wayne Westland School District.
She told me that I was being suspended for 3 days, OSS, for taking a picture. It's inappropriate use of electronics in the restroom. And everyone in my school, every girl takes selfies in the bathroom and makes it their profile picture on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and no one has gotten in trouble.
Dozens of students protested by tweeting bathroom pictures they took without getting in trouble. I called Wayne Westland Superintendent Dr. Michelle Harmala. She looked into it and says she found out high school administrators made mistakes. For one, they didn't report the water issue to maintenance, so she did.
So I reached out to them. They sent a plumber out right away. We do have a piece of the pipe that leads to the faucet that was corroding and needs to be replaced, so that's underway right now.
Dr. Harmala says the rule against cell phones in bathrooms aims to prevent inappropriate pictures of people, not building issues, and the punishment is inappropriate.
She's going to make sure this out-of-school suspension is taken off your record.
Oh, yes. I'm so happy for that.
What does that mean to you?
That means a lot to me.
It means a lot to her. It does mean a lot. And even crazy stories about kids getting suspended. If we were to do a whole hour, I could just do this. I could do a whole episode about this for an hour, and it wouldn't make a difference anyway. So the bottom line here is this: we don't need out-of-school suspension. We need in-school suspension. Because we don't want kids going all, I get a day off from school. Do you remember the movie Expelled from many years ago, to where a kid gets expelled for all the wrong things that he did? If you watch that movie, you know he got suspended 3 times. He got two suspensions. Koala Charity, and for inappropriate photo in the school board. And he had the vending machines to give out free gum to students. He got expelled. His parents didn't find out later till towards the middle of the movie. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch that with your child and talk to them, saying, "Hey, this will get you expelled." A lot of kids are protesting, saying, people just take pictures outside the bathroom and they never get in trouble. Does it matter? Kids get suspended for dumb reasons. Haircuts. And what about this one? How about learning at school about bullying? And then getting suspended
local
for it.
community, but
Take a look.
agree, saying the district needs to do more to respond to and stop bullying.
Take a look.
Dozens of students walked out of class today in support of 18-year-old Nate Taylor, suspended from Rainier High School for 2 days.
I was very frustrated because somebody's life was on the line.
Nate says he went to a counselor and the principal on May 22nd, expressing concerns that a friend was being bullied.
Nothing was done, so I went back to him, and he told me the exact same thing, to stay out of it because I have nothing to do with it.
With his parents' permission, 15-year-old Dylan Lane also spoke with us today, showing us a picture he says another student posted of him on Instagram and the disturbing comments below it.
He told me to go kill myself.
Nate says he was worried it was something his friend might do, and he says that's why he went to school officials 3 times in the same day.
Did you get upset? Did you get angry?
Absolutely, I was pretty intense. I was very intense about the whole situation because somebody close to you losing their life, not just taking their lives, I don't ever want to feel that.
I found out the superintendent is out of state today, but I reached him on his cell phone to find out more.
Was the student suspended for being a whistleblower on bullying?
No. We can't discuss specifics of a student case, but we can assure you that we have never suspended a student who has come to warn us about the safety or advocate for on behalf of a fellow student or friend.
What concerns me about this is the next kid who gets bullied and nobody's there to do anything about it.
This afternoon, Nate's father allowed the school to release his son's discipline file. It says Nate was suspended for inappropriate language towards staff and impeding an investigation, something Nate denies. The principal says he told Nate, "We are doing things, but I need you to calm down and let us do our jobs."
They weren't going to handle the issue. They were going to let it go.
Now, I asked the superintendent today if there is a bullying investigation going on here. He tells me yes, and he says there's a discipline hearing for the students involved next week. Parents here picking up their students who walked out tell me that those students have now been suspended from school. I'm still waiting to hear back from the district to get confirmation on that. We'll let you know. Reporting live in Rainier, Amy Frazier, KOIN 6 News.
Telling is not tattling. Telling is not tattling. Do you not know those 4 words? Telling is not tattling. Nobody, people say, oh, nobody likes to snitch, nobody likes to tattletale. Well, telling somebody your friend's being victimized and their friend's being bullied, that's not tattling. That's helping them out. He's a hero. He should not be suspended. I mean, look at this text. Just look at it.
Another student posted of him on Instagram and the
Look at all this. He reported it. He reported it saying he was going to kill himself. He was worried. But if he would, yes, he did the right thing, but he should have waited. If he was angry about it, then yes, it's okay to be angry. But to not get use profanity and say, well, you motherfuckers didn't even do a damn thing for this kid. You're trying to let it go, sweep it under the rug. I don't give a fuck what you do. I don't care if I get suspended. Y'all can go fuck yourselves. Look, I have a nephew who's 1.5 years old. And if he was being bullied on the streets by another child, and I was concerned about that, I damn well would go to his parents and say, hey, you bullied my nephew, who will one day take my place. I want you, your son, to apologize to my nephew. In this case scenario, I'd say it would be my case manager, Alyssa Lamb, picking on my nephew. Now, that's not the case. If she's watching this, that will not be the case. But if it did, I would tell her to apologize. Or we would end. Or it's over. But look at this. This is the biggest blank I know. Sits there and talks blank under his breath, but when I tell him to say it out loud, he won't. And I told him I was going to punch him in the mouth. And this blank says, hit me, you're 18. That just shows you how much of a blank he is, because all he can do is go to the cops, can't even stick up for himself. Stupid blank. Blank cracking me up, boy. Blank, congratulations. You are the biggest blank I know. What a blanking. Ha ha. BTW, he has a baby. Blank. Somebody show me a picture. It's so smart. There are things out there which you need to understand here. What you gotta understand from a common sense perspective is this. If you're concerned about someone being picked on, you talk to somebody. We've done bullying shows. We've done shows about bullying, and I've often said this. I've learned this from Dr. Phil. Telling is not tattling. We present you with tips. We present you with every information. But one person really took the cake. He reported it. I mean, he reported it to the school officials. And they told him to stay out of it. Is that fair? No, it isn't. Did it make him angry? Yes. I mean, when was this? This was 10 years ago. This was back years ago. And if I were talking to him today, he would still be affected by it. It's like, and look at this comment. The teachers always say, if someone is being bullied, tell an adult. And when you do, you get suspended. I mean, there are steps. You reported it, you went to the authorities. And he got suspended. And looking back at this, like, aren't you that kid that got suspended for reporting a bully? Yeah, it was one of the worst times ever. You got a question about that? Where are they going to go? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I don't have a question. It's like, I would feel bad for, like, what? I would feel bad because every school district, if you ask schools that they have a bullying problem, they would just lie straight to your face and say, we don't have a bullying problem, and if we do, we certainly don't want to talk about it. That's what the school would say. Deny, 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 deny. That's what schools would do. They would deny. If you ask them that question, they would lie straight to your face and deny it. But if you got proof, you go up to them and say, hey, we have proof that there was bullying going on here. They would take screenshots of posts, and if they were not aware of it, then they would have reported to the state. Then you have to go to the State Department of Education and say, and ask them, does this school have a bullying issue? The state superintendent would say yes, the school has a bullying issue. Then they would discuss it and take it up. That's why we say some adults make everything worse. They don't seem anything helpful. Because teachers' jobs to defend bullies and justify bullying. That's the truth. Imagine if teachers, principals, superintendents started catching fists after attempting to sweep things under the rug. Adults covering this up and lying about it and enabling the bully's behavior is very real. Look, sweeping under the rug is just like the legal way of saying we don't want to deal with it. You know, when you report somebody, when you go to somebody in authority, like I said before, like I've always said, when you go to somebody in authority that you're being picked on, that's not tattling. That is helping somebody out. And if you can do that, you can be a town hero. You would get your first kiss, while cats would be at your feet going, wow, wow. Even your dog would bask in your glory. It might not happen, but your friends will be right by you. Your parents will be proud of you. The whole community would stand by you. If you can find, let me tell you, if you can find a way to combat bullying, you'd be known as the town hero. In my opinion. Like in my opinion, you would probably be a town hero. And you would be basking in glory. School safety is back on the news, and Baltimore County is part of the scandals. From inclusion to even not caring about school safety, Chris Papps has the story of school safety. And still ahead, a cop tells Rob Sanford that he witnessed a crime. and what the police department has to say. Stay with us. I am special needs. I have a disorder called autism spectrum disorder, or the ASD, PDD with speech delay. I've not watched this, but it makes me sick that 6 years ago, there was a tragic death that happened in Baltimore County, the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. But for years, they prompted the school, hey, we need some change. But that didn't happen. But now the family of Baldwin County tells his son Roger Baltimore promises made to keep special needs students safe are not being fulfilled. You know why that is? Because nobody cares about the students' safety, and all they care about is money. That's all they care about is the money, the taxes, the blob. That's why school choice is needed, because of competition. You can escape that school and then go to a different school. If you shut down bad schools, it's healthy. As we talked about throughout the years, if you shut down bad schools, it can be very healthy. The family you're about to meet says more needed to be done, but could it have meant getting. We could have, but we'll let Chris Papps. Here's Chris Papps.
Tell me about your son. Oh, super kid. So many people would be intimidated by him, right? But once they got to know him, all of them would come in and hug and kiss him. He and his sister are 16 months apart, so they were Irish twins.
How's your day? On November 18th, 2019, Bowen Levy would have turned 18, but he never made it because his own school system failed to keep him safe.
You made promises that you were going to do certain things for our child.
Brian Levy is Bowen's father.
You agreed to the bare minimum that you were going to do, and then you failed that miserably.
Bowen, at a young age, was diagnosed with autism combined with pica disorder, a condition where a person attempts to eat non-food items. Bowen attended Central Special, one of 3 special needs schools operated by Anne Arundel County Public Schools. According to Bowen's IEP, or Individualized Education Program, he was supposed to have a full-time one-on-one aide, but Bowen did not have an aide. The school system didn't hire one. Instead, the district relied on teachers and classroom assistants. But when vacancies occurred, substitutes were not always hired, leaving the students improperly supervised. And on November 5th, 2019, while at school, Bowen put a rubber glove into his mouth and choked on it.
That's how he died. And I had to sit and watch the video of that. They could have saved him. They didn't know he swallowed the glove because no one was there. The people that were supposed to be in the class weren't there.
The State Department of Social Services investigated and ruled Bowen died as a result of the systemic failure at Central Special School. The family filed a lawsuit, and in 2022, the district paid the Levys $2.5 million and entered into this consent decree, which required the district to implement safety protocols and provide regular substitute staff vacancy data for the district's 3 special needs schools.
After the settlement, Levy thought his fight with the school system was over. Students with disabilities were safe and he could heal after losing his son. But Project Baltimore has obtained the staffing data provided by the district. And what we found is stunning.
And it's still happening. And it's not improving.
Do you believe that students in Anne Arundel County schools who need a one-on-one aid with these numbers are not safe?
I can assure you they're not.
In June 2022, the district reported its first batch of substitute staffing data to the Levy family. Between the county's 3 special needs schools, the district reported 1,206 total job requests where a substitute was required, with 39% of those requests being filled. In January of 2023, the district reported nearly 150 fewer requests, with now 35% being filled. By January 2025, the district had 958 requests where a substitute was required, but only 26% were filled, meaning 74% of the 958 requests were not filled by a substitute to provide care for special needs students. Look at these numbers. The percentage of substitutes hired to care for special needs students has gotten worse since Anne Arundel County Schools was found responsible for Bowen Levy's death.
It is cheaper for them to pay off a family with a dead child than it is for them to give them the care that they are promised.
Project Baltimore, nearly 3 weeks ago, requested an interview with Superintendent Dr. Mark Bedell or Board President Robert Silkworth to discuss the substitute staffing shortages. We are still working to schedule a time. However, we did receive a statement explaining that since spring 2022, the district has requested enhancements in special education, including additional positions, and has offered a $2,000 bonus for special educators in the system. In the last 4 years, the school district says its special education budget has increased 32%.
We were being told that the coverage was being supplemented. We were being told that it was going to be okay.
What happened to Bowen could happen again.
100%. It not can happen, it will happen. You cannot have these special needs kids not properly supervised.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore. I'm Chris Pabst.
Not have these special needs kids not properly supervised.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Take a look at this kid. Autism. I do have it. As someone on the spectrum makes me sick that not one teacher, not even one teacher, has looked at this and go, oh, if one teacher had looked at this and went, no, get that out of your mouth. Get that out of your mouth. He might still be alive today. Today he would have still been alive, but everybody in that county failed him. The school failed him, and they failed the parents of this child. Settling the lawsuit does not do shit. If you settle out of court, it's gonna happen again. You know, you could just bring up requirements and say, look, we're gonna be, because of this lawsuit, these are the requirements we're gonna be doing. What we're gonna do here is we're going to have all these things filled out. We're gonna have a lot of people fill its requirement for a substitute, this, that, and the third. And then what would happen is no training would be involved. All those substitute positions that have been filled, there was not any training. No training involved. If there was training involved, then everything would be alright. Those DEI programs aren't just racist, they are unreliable, extremely expensive. ... And this is the reason that the Board of Education needs to go into the cash, be kicked in the parent, needs to go, and the cash, this is why Board of Education needs to go, and the cash is and the cash be kicked to the parents to homeschool. Go truck, go. If the system could not meet the needs of specified on his IEP, which they did not, he needed an out-of-county placement, where they could. The cost would be exported in, but required. Special education needs are extremely costly. Lawsuit settlements cost less than providing services. Lawsuit. Yes, but they settle. Lawsuit settlements cost less because they need requirements. You know? I mean, under a substitute contract, you'd be like, this would be the old contract, it'd be saying like, under this contract, you will keep students unsafe, you will keep special needs students unsafe, you will keep them unsupervised, you will bully them, you will cuss them out, and you'll get a raise. Now go fuck yourself. But under the new contract, it'd be like, by signing this agreement, maybe like this. By signing this agreement, you will supervise every special needs child and help them through the thick and thin. That old contract saying go fuck yourself, if I had made that contract, if they told me to make that contract, I would have checked up in 1,000 pieces and left. Showing that to Chris Babs, he would have laughed his ass off. But the thing I understand here is this: every state needs special education. Like in this community, we have a special education program. We have a special ed building. And what we would do, and they have basic classrooms like basic English, basic history. And we have the annual ARD meetings. I've had my annual ARD meetings. I remember those. It's where you would sit there. You would have your teachers, your principals would be there, your counselors would be there. This is how it would be. The student is there, along with the parents, the assistant principal, sometimes the assistant principal, the advisor teacher, a regular teacher, or an elective teacher. That's the way I remember it. That's how I remember these meetings. I went to one in 8th grade, 9th grade, from 2011 to 2016. So 2016. The last ARD meeting I had was back in 2016. I remember this, you know. I remember the ARD meeting I had. I think I remember this one. It was sophomore year. And we were like talking about, you know, he needs to shave. It's like, I don't know how to use a regular razor, bro. It's like, could we have a program put in place for, could we have an after school program to teach male students how to shave? He'd be like, yeah, that's a good idea. But if I had brought that up to the principal, he'd be like, yeah, but, yeah, but that's not a good idea. We don't want, because this is what happened to me. I was sent to the office, to the nurse's office by a teacher. I'm not going to name names. I was sent to the office because I had stubble hair. The school policy says I need to be shaven. But then by the time the coach found out, it was too late. I had cuts all over me. My mom got furious. Well, before all of that, 8th period comes around. We go to see his principal, and I told him what the heck had happened. The next day comes, he apologizes, saying, hey, I'm sorry that I did this to you, but I was just following the rules. It's alright to follow the rules. It's okay. I want to have the same thing ever happen to me, you know? I mean, I remember you told me, like, go shave. It's like, I can't do that because, you know, I'm supposed to go to Mr. Jones if it happens again. It's like, okay, we'll go to Mr. Jones. I should have told her, it's in my ARD meeting. If I had told her that, hey, this was in my ARD meeting, she would have looked at that file and been like, oh, that's right. I forgot. If not, then we'll have to discuss with my mother when she gets back. If I had told her, I mean, I want to get my dad involved because he doesn't live within the school district. He lives outside the Bluff. But he's staying with me along with my brother. Separate days. So can we talk to your brother? Would not recommend it. Because he's busy over there. Can we call the shop? You can try. The voice was saying, hey, this is your son. Your son Jonathan is... I need you to call us back at this number. It's like my dad would have got involved and said, well, you're supposed to be shaving every day, Jonathan. It's like, well, yes, but I don't know how to use a regular razor because I want to get my face cut. I use an electric razor. And then my mom would have gotten home, and my mama knew about it. She would have picked up the phone and been like, listen, Miss Driver, my son had cuts in his bruises back in 2014. He's not supposed to use a regular razor. He's supposed to use an electric razor. It was in the ARD meeting last year, which you should have looked over. And she would have been like, and she would have been like, ma'am, I understand. I need you to calm down. And then she would have got furious, went back home, and dealt with it. Not only getting them involved, but would have gotten the assistant principal involved and said, look, this teacher right here, he almost cut his face. And there was one person that knew about it. I'm not going to say her name, but she knew about it. It was in the ARD. It was in the ARD meeting, and she knew about it. She remembered it, and she remembered it very well. And if it wasn't for her, she would have defended her. She would have defended me, saying, hey, this was in his ARD. I remember it very well. If you didn't believe me, you can ask. If you don't believe me, then you look back at the ARD. We can talk about coming to our next ARD meeting. Because I would have remembered it very well. And Mr. Jones was there, and he would have remembered it very well. I would have said, Mr. Jones, correct me if I'm wrong, but you told me that if it ever happens again, I would come straight to you. He would have been like, you are half correct. I'm like, what do you mean I'm half correct? It would have been like, okay, well, this, and that. So, that's the story. We're going to take a break and come back with the story about Witness. Stay with us. Now, a chilling story that would make a difference between that would even make a difference between defying the law and obeying the law and enforcing the law. It involves police officers in a chase with one of their own. That person was involved, and it probably ended in a crash. But did it? Here's Rob Stafford.
You know who did it? Do you know anybody? No, the man is dying. They're on their way, sir. Do you have any other...
It began as a restaurant robbery and murder on a cold January night in Boston. Four suspects, all black males, sped away from the murder scene in a gold Lexus. Police chased them through the winding streets of the city. What happened in the next few minutes would eventually send the Boston Police Department into turmoil. Police chased the car into this housing project at the end of a cul-de-sac. The suspects jumped out and tried to climb this chain-link fence. Officers gave chase and quickly apprehended 4 black men fitting the descriptions called out on the radio. After a struggle, they also had a 5th black man, a man caught climbing this same fence. His name is Michael Cox.
I feel a very sharp blow to the back of my head, and the next thing I know, I'm on the ground.
The scene was chaotic. At first, Michael Cox wasn't sure who was hitting him, but as the beating continued, he got a glimpse.
Looks like an officer. He's a white officer. He's standing in front of me, and he has on boots. And I start to look up at him, and he kicks me directly in my face, mouth.
Cox tried to get up, but was confronted by another police officer.
He starts commanding orders at me, you know, for me to put my hands behind my back. I mean, it's obvious he doesn't know who I am.
So who was this fifth black man? Remember, police have been chasing 4 black suspects. The beating continued, then suddenly stopped. Perhaps the officers saw something, a gun or a badge, or even recognized his face. Because the man they were beating was not a killer fleeing the scene of a crime, but a fellow officer, Officer Michael Cox.
They stopped, you know, they stopped hitting me. I don't know how much time goes by, but at some point I either get up or I look up, and there's nobody around.
Michael Cox was a plainclothes cop. He was on duty that night and was chasing the same murder suspects as the other officers.
At the moment they realized that you were a police officer, did they say, "We're sorry, get you an ambulance, and come to your aid"?
No.
What did they do?
They left. I mean, they ran. That's what they did.
Cox doesn't know how long he was lying on the ground in 28-degree temperatures. What he does know is that 2 officers from his own unit, the Youth Violence Strike Force, arrived at the scene, recognized him, and called an ambulance.
It wasn't just the beating that angered me, but it's the fact that they left. You know, the fact that they didn't have the common decency to at least stay there, you know, give me a Band-Aid or anything, or, you know. They just left me there like an animal to die.
Surely with this kind of beating, someone would stand up for Michael Cox and step forward with the truth. After all, there were almost 24 officers at the scene that night, one just a few feet away. But Michael Cox, who suffered lacerations, bruised kidneys, and double vision, says what happened next was even worse than the attack itself.
If they do it to me or another police officer, would they do it to another person if they got away with it? I mean, what's to stop them? Who's to stop them?
But who were to stop him? Who was to stop him? When we come back, we're going to hear more from Michael Cox, and then we're going to hear from what the police department has to say from their perspective. Please stay with us. Returning to our story, Officer Michael Cox has just been beaten. Remember, there was 4 black males that were being chased by police officers. They suspected it was Michael Cox who was the 5th person. He says he was beaten to a pulp and had double vision. Just to name a couple of the medical conditions. But before long, there would be damning evidence, a powerful weapon that could be used against Michael Cox. But would it? Once again, here's Rob Stafford.
I love the job, and it was more than what I expected. I mean, I helped people who were in great need of my help, you know, on the verge of death.
Until the night he was brutally beaten by his fellow officers, Michael Cox had loved being a police officer.
Did you feel you could count on the officers you worked with?
Yeah, I did.
And they could count on you?
Yes, certainly, yes.
In just 6 years, Officer Cox proved much more than reliable. He made hundreds of arrests, earned 2 Medals of Honor, and was even named Policeman of the Year. One supervisor said Cox could have been Boston's first black police commissioner.
What did being a police officer mean to you?
It meant being able to help people in a position when they really need help. It meant integrity. It meant respect.
But what Officer Cox says he learned on January 25th, 1995, was that first and foremost, being a Boston police officer meant loyalty to other officers. Would it be at the expense of everything else, including personal integrity?
I expected the individuals involved would probably come forward and, you know, say what they had done. They would be disciplined. I expected that life would probably go on, but it didn't happen that way. You know, it didn't happen that way at all.
5 days after the attack, the police department launched an internal investigation. All of the police known to be at the scene were asked to file as standard procedure incident reports. Of the 22 reports, 14 officers said they did not see Michael Cox. 8 officers did say they saw Cox on the ground, but didn't know how he'd been injured.
I realized that, maybe I'm the odd man out here.
How could no one have known what happened? After all, there were 22 officers at the scene. Cox's blood was found on a police cruiser, and the streetlight was on. Boston Globe reporter Dick Lair spent 6 months investigating the attack on Michael Cox.
If you position the cars, it's right under a streetlight. Okay, there's a problem there.
One officer said the scene was deserted when he arrived, but his report showed something else.
The place is buzzing with Boston cops, security guards. And yet you have this supervisor or a sergeant's report saying that it's empty.
Was it merely a coincidence that at least 3 officers came up with the exact same theory that Cox had slipped on some ice? There was a patch of ice where Cox was found. But everyone we've talked to, including doctors and Cox's supervisor, said it's preposterous that a simple fall could have caused those injuries.
After talking to Michael, I knew the injuries were consistent with somebody slipping on ice unless you would have bounced up and down several times.
Now retired, William Johnston was the department's deputy superintendent and also Cox's supervisor.
As far as I'm concerned, the worst crime I think I've ever heard of as a member of the Boston Police Department, to leave a brother police officer out there. And they didn't know how extensive his injuries were. So they left him possibly there to die.
The original mistake, I think, is perfectly understandable. Police work is hard, and in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the chase, Michael Cox looked like a suspect trying to climb a fence, and then it might even take a blow to get him down off that fence. Up to that point, that's police work in action. It's after that, and isn't that always the case? It's the cover-up that follows, it's the extra beatings, the extra kicks. That's when the problems arose.
The problem is common to police departments across the country, a culture many cops call the blue wall of silence. The unwritten rule that no matter what, you keep quiet to protect your fellow officer. Michael Cox had heard of the blue wall of silence, he had feared it, but now he was about to run right into it. As Cox lay in a hospital bed recovering from his injuries, he began asking questions about what happened and who was responsible. But colleagues who once asked how he was doing were now turning their backs. And as days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, Internal Affairs continued its investigation. But not one officer at the scene had come forward to say what really happened.
I think there was a sense maybe it'll just go away. Maybe the message was to Michael, take your beating and just shut up.
And former Deputy Superintendent Johnston says it would have taken tremendous courage for the officers who saw what happened to break the code of silence.
What happens to a police officer shows physical courage? We give him a medal. What happens to a police officer shows moral courage? We don't stick a medal on him. We stick a name on him. We call him a rat.
When you were a young officer, did you see incidents of brutality?
Absolutely.
Did you stand up?
Absolutely not. I closed my eyes, I closed my ears, I closed my mouth, I just got away. And it bothered me. Later on in my career, it really bothered me. But I gotta understand, at the time, I thought that's what it took to be a good police officer. They wanted a tough police officer. In fact, when I think of when we went to court and there'd be prisoners standing there that had injuries, I never remember the judge at that time asking what happened to the man. So by his silence, was he saying, yeah, it's okay?
6 months after the beating, out of the 22 cops in and around the scene, not one had come forward. The Internal Affairs Department went through the police reports from that night. They found startling inconsistencies and were able to identify 3 suspects in the beating: Officers James Bergio, David Williams, and Ian Daly. Perhaps now there would be justice for Michael Cox.
When Internal Affairs got involved, did you expect them to get at the truth?
I did, yeah. In a naive way. I certainly did.
But despite the efforts of the Internal Affairs Department, the suspected officers took their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. As for Cox, because of his lingering injuries, he was no longer able to work the streets. Ironically, he was transferred to the Internal Affairs Department, the same department that came up empty in his investigation. And as the months went by, Cox began to feel like he was the one who had done something wrong. Looked at just as the former deputy superintendent says all cops who speak out are, as a rat.
Just walk into a room, and, people look at you like, you're dirt, or they would just shoot you right there if they could get away with it. I really, really loved the job, and I just didn't understand, why, what did I do to create all this hostility towards me?
Cox says the hostility wasn't confined to work.
Gosh, and my tires slashed, I think, on like 4 different occasions. I had to change my phone number several times, all kind of phone calls, all during the night. Fake 911 calls to my house for a man being beat.
The harassment not only took a toll on Michael Cox, but on his wife Kimberly and their marriage.
He's more anxious. At the beginning, he had problems sleeping, a lot of nightmares. He enjoyed doing lots of things with our children, and that kind of tapered off. And he's still the very kind person he was, but he's not as giving as he once was.
It was also tough on their children. The man they once looked up to had suddenly changed.
I mean, they really looked up to my husband, and they want to be police officers just like him. And he's this big guy, and Daddy's invincible, and all of a sudden he's been knocked down. So there goes your whole idea of who Daddy is.
Through the entire ordeal, Michael Cox could never bring himself to explain his pain to his children.
You have never told your children what happened to you. Why not?
How do you look a child in the eyes and tell them before that, police officers are good, they're your friend, and how do you explain to a child that you were beaten and basically left for dead by another police officer?
Finally, after months of silence, there was hope. The case was given to Suffolk County District Attorney Ralph Martin.
This crime was not only a crime against Michael Cox, it really was a crime against public order. This should be offensive to anyone, not just because I'm a law enforcement official. This should be offensive to anyone.
Was someone finally about to get at the truth? More than a year after Michael Cox was brutally beaten and abandoned, the truth about how it happened still had not come out.
I want to go back to
Suffolk County District Attorney Ralph Martin was investigating the attack.
I think the investigation was compromised by the conspiracy of silence of the police officers who were involved in the beating, or who might have known something about it.
You ran smack into the blue wall of silence.
That's correct.
And how thick is that wall?
It's a pretty tough nut to crack.
And the cover-up seemed to be working. The district attorney could not crack the case and failed to charge anyone in the attack. Who's responsible for the fact that your investigation did not end in indictments?
Listen, ultimately, the people who know what happened and who didn't come forward share responsibility for not only covering up, but also for compromising their oath of office. When they swore an oath as police officers, they swore an oath to uphold the law. That means supplying information about crimes committed in their presence.
So the officers suspected went to work every day wearing the badge of the Boston Police Department. Meanwhile, Michael Cox was living in fear. At night, Cox slept by his front window, trying to catch the vandals outside his home.
When I saw that he was frightened, and I was frightened.
What is this doing to your life?
Making it very difficult to function as a family.
And while this was going on, the Internal Affairs investigation had come up with nothing. The district attorney had failed to indict. Cox hoped the top brass at the Boston Police Department would step in.
My commitment from the very start of this case was to work to get the individuals responsible arrested and jailed for the criminals they were.
Their loved ones
Paul Evans has been the Boston Police Commissioner for the past 6 years. He says he did not have enough evidence to discipline any of the suspected officers.
Can you understand how it looks when a group of officers are suspected of beating up a fellow officer, leaving him bleeding in the street, and then lying about it, and they continue to go to work every day?
It would have been easy for me to take him off the streets and run the risk of having everything thrown out. And what message does that send? I've seen too many cases where the department acted rashly and officers who committed wrongdoing were later reinstated because investigations weren't done properly.
He also says he needed time and didn't want to jeopardize the criminal investigations. Former Deputy Superintendent William Johnston says the commissioner's delay was a big mistake.
I mean, you just can't have a policy that says we will not allow police brutality without modeling it. Let us say, and there is a price to pay. There's a consequence for your action if you're involved in these activities. Because as long as we remain silent, we open the door for our critics. As long as we remain silent, we condone the action. We're saying, hey, it's okay.
And so the department remained silent, never apologizing to Cox or publicly acknowledging what happened. And Michael Cox became more and more isolated, and his wife became more and more angry.
I was just under the impression that the police department would say, here we have, a fine police officer who's been awarded many awards. He's done jobs I didn't want him to do. He's put his life on the line. I thought they would have stood up and said, we're going to bring this man justice. And none of that was done.
But in September of 1996, a year and a half after the attack, there was new hope for Michael Cox. Federal prosecutors stepped in to take over the criminal investigation. U.S. Attorney Donald Stern.
Why did you think you could succeed where others had failed?
We had the advantage of being able to use a federal grand jury to aggressively investigate this incident.
He believed he'd found a witness who knew exactly what happened. A police officer who must have been just a few feet away from Cox. His name is Kenny Conley.
The suspect hopped the fence. I scaled the fence and chased him some 600, 700 yards away and apprehended him.
In fact, Kenny Conley arrested the same suspect Michael Cox had been chasing. Cox was found beaten and bleeding right around here. Investigators believe Conley must have run right past him as he chased the suspect over this fence, and must have had a clear view because several cruiser lights were on and this street light was on as well. Finally, was there a witness who could tell what happened that night?
Did you see Michael Cox?
I never saw Michael Cox.
Did you see anyone resembling Michael Cox being beaten?
No.
You have perfect vision. The street light was on that night. Michael Cox is over 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds. And you did not see him that night?
No.
It seems as though he'd be hard to miss.
To you, a person who's never been in a police chase, it would seem hard to miss. My adrenaline was going. There's all different factors into that that could let you not see something that was a foot in front of you, right in front of you, right next to you.
A crushing blow to the prosecution. U.S. Attorney Donald Stern hoped Conley would change his story when he testified before the federal grand jury. But even after being granted immunity from prosecution, Conley did not change a word.
No comment.
Are you lying to protect your fellow officers?
No. No.
Did you take the stand and lie under oath?
No.
Some people believe it is more honorable for you to lie and face prison than it is to turn on your fellow officers.
What am I getting out of it? What am I getting out of lying and going to prison? I'm going to lose 3 years of my life so they can walk around the streets. No, I'm not lying.
But a jury disagreed, convicting Conley of perjury and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 34 months in prison. But even now, a year and a half after being convicted, he has never been fired from the force. He's on administrative leave without pay pending a termination hearing. Fellow officers have rallied to his defense. Even some politicians have shown support. And as Michael Cox watched the outpouring for Kenny Conley, he says he was still constantly harassed.
I always considered myself a good police officer, and I thought I was a good person, a good guy, so to speak. But I realized then that, in their eyes, he was a good guy, period.
You're the police officer who got beat up. The officer indicted for lying about it had a fundraiser and had a lot of public support. Much more support, in fact, than you have received.
Oh, it's not even, there's no comparison. The support I received has been quiet support by good friends and family.
Why do you think Kenny Conley got so much support from fellow officers and Michael Cox got so little?
I think the support for Michael Cox has always been that he's got tremendous credibility within the rank and file.
Michael Cox will tell you what he's gotten for 4.5 years is dirty looks and a cold shoulder.
I don't believe so. I believe that the rank and file, the men and women of this department, realize who the bad guys are in this case.
After years of silence from officers at the scene that night, after being failed by local prosecutors and frustrated by federal prosecutors, Michael Cox wondered if race played a role in how he was treated. But 2 of the officers suspected in his beating were black.
So how could race have been a factor there?
I thought about it, and I realized that would this have happened to me had I been a white police officer? No. For some reason, I believe that, there would have been swift justice.
In the end, Michael Cox found some form of justice on his own.
I realized that, I had to do something about it, regardless of what the DA's office of the police department was going to do.
In December of last year, Cox won a civil lawsuit. A jury found 2 officers liable for his beating and a 3rd liable for not getting Cox medical attention. All of the officers refused Dateline's repeated requests for on-camera interviews, but in written statements denied any involvement in the attack. The city of Boston paid Cox almost $1 million.
There are some people out there who think this is about money. Is it?
No. I'd gladly give every dime and some back to go back to how my life was back before this ever happened.
Along with the money, Cox got an apology from the Boston Police Commissioner. 4 years after his beating, finally the apology he always wanted. But Cox still couldn't come up with an explanation for his sons.
If your sons come to you and say, Dad, I want to be a police officer, what will you say to them?
I'll do everything I can to discourage them.
And what about the police department? It has launched new training programs, and reports of brutality have fallen by more than 25%. As for the wall of silence, it still stands. To this day, not one of the 22 officers in or around the scene has come forward. 2 of the officers found liable in connection with the beating are on leave, but are still being paid as members of the department. The 3rd officer was fired just last week. Michael Cox says it seems like years since he was first sworn in as a Boston police officer.
Police officer Michael Cox be pinned by his wife, Kimberly Cox.
Today, Cox is still on the force, says he is still harassed, and is still running up against the blue wall of silence.
I love to go to work, and it was taken away from me, based on the actions of, a couple of guys, and on the inaction of an entire police department.
Though one of the accused officers was fired just days before we aired this story, the Boston Police Department claims there is no connection between our report and its decision. Any criminal charges brought against the 3 suspected officers must be filed in the next 2 months. Otherwise, it will be too late. The statute of limitations on the case will run out. And the policeman found guilty of perjury, Officer Kenny Conley, is now appealing his conviction to the U.S. Supreme Court.
He can appeal, but it won't heal the scars. You beat up the police officer. You beat him. Y'all beat him. You saw him. You beat him. You harassed him. How dare you? How dare you? We're going to tell you more about this when we come back. Stay with us. To keep this long and short of it, if all those take a lie detector test, they've been asked, did you beat up Michael Cox? You answered no. You did not tell the truth. Second officer, did you beat up Michael Cox? You said no. Did you see Michael Cox climb the fence? You said no. Did you in any way kept it silence? You answered yes. You told the truth, but on those two questions, he did not tell the truth. They did not tell the truth. Third officer, should we answer the same questions? Deception, non-deceptive. He passed one. He failed the other. Y'all beat him. You beat him. You saying you didn't beat him? You beat him. You did. How dare you? You beat him. You beat him. You beat her. You beat him. You beat him. How dare you? You saw him. You saw him climb the fence. You beat him. You beat him. There was blood. You beat him. You and others beat him. You didn't get him medical attention, but you beat him. Don't change that story and don't let it go other ways. The bottom line here is this: how much local police officers, and there's a wall of silence, break it. Do what you gotta do. That's all for this edition of Give Me a Break. Monday going to Tuesday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Monday. For everyone here on YouTube, and Give Me a Break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Take care of yourself and each other.